Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rachel Haney with Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Tim Kaufman, who is the co-owner of Gateway Financing LLC, and he actually works closely with Justin Bogard, which you guys all know, and he is one of the presenters or teachers for our notes class. So I have this opportunity to talk with Tim Kaufman today. Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for your time and allowing us some opportunity to get to know you a little bit and answer some questions more so on notes. Just a little bit about you. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with having worked at Butler University's with all of the entrepreneur students? What was that experience like?
I've been involved in that program about 6 years now, and it essentially is a program that is entrepreneurship and innovation, and the class is held at the Lacey School of Business at Butler. And essentially what the class is formed up for is students, usually a team of 6, and 99% they're sophomores. It is a required curriculum for them. And they form up a company. They'll have a president, a vice president, communications, marketing, and the purpose of the course is for them to either have a business that they form up where they sell a good, or they have a service, or they manufacture something. They're allowed a little bit of seed money from Butler to get it going. The course, then we take them through the primary and secondary research, the primary and secondary marketing, what's known as a proof of concept. We take them through the accounting piece of how to run a business. And then they're pretty much on their own, and we're there to help guide them and mentor them as they need us. Toward the end of the class, it culminates with them going before a funding panel. It's not a Shark Tank, because the whole idea is to fund these kids and give them a good positive experience. So they've had zero experience with it. So it's not like what you see on TV where the goal is sometimes to upend the participant. These are kids that have never run a business before. And so at the end, they get to keep the proceeds of everything they sell. It typically is around $1,500 they split. I've never known a team to finish in the red. And some of them come up with some really good ideas. A few years ago, we had a team that came up with a likeness of Trip the Bulldog. It was kind of on their shoulders, and it would bobble around. Anyway, long story short, they each split. At the end of 13 weeks, they each made $10,000. So it was incredible, and that's what can be done. And that business was carried on outside of the university. So who knows, the sky's the limit, but it's an extremely useful program within entrepreneurship and innovation, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you what was some of the best business projects, and it sounds like that might be one of the top winners right there.
Yeah, and they generally are not going to. We encourage them. We don't encourage applications. There's not enough time to develop all that. We keep it simple. T-shirts, those kinds of things to get them wet into dealing with vendors and that kind of thing. So it's we had a team the first semester that they had T-shirts, and they made about $2,000 a piece. So you just don't know what's going to take off and what isn't. It depends on, the theme and all of that, but it's a great program for them. So we've had, usually the teams are going to split around $1,500, but
that's so great, especially knowing that they didn't have any business or entrepreneurial experience prior to this. So
exactly.
You're definitely providing them a great road to start on.
And
on that note,
a lot of fun. Mm-hmm.
If I'm a person and I realize I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know where to start, what's your suggestion on how to really get on track and have a good direction?
You mean outside of the university? Just in general?
Yes, in general.
Yeah. I would say a lot of people think they want to be an entrepreneur. They don't know necessarily what that even means. What is an entrepreneur? It generally is confused sometimes with being an investor, and really they're different. Now, an entrepreneur can be an investor. An investor, I found over decades, is usually not necessarily an entrepreneur. So they have disposable monies. They're going to invest in companies. There's angel investors and that kind of thing. Entrepreneurial people usually start with a clean sheet of paper, usually, and they come up with an idea. And then from that, they begin to form a business plan around it and a marketing plan. And it's not to say they can't come up with the same widget that 100 other people haven't come up with. And if they sell theirs at a lower price, of course, and have more volume, that's still a good business model. But I found a lot of entrepreneurs are going to do something a little bit different, or take an existing business model and shape it in a different way and bring it to market like it's never been brought to market before. So I would say education, like anything, is the key. There's numerous articles that have been printed. I would say one of the best educators outside of written and going to classes to be an entrepreneur, as it were, is to talk to people that are self-employed. And a lot of those people will be, and generally are, considered entrepreneurs. So talk to them and find out and educate. Like anything, educate. Get all the information you possibly can. And that's going to serve you well. And there's a lot of folks, and that's the cheap part, because there's no point in taking something, investing a lot of money in it, and then finding out that, I don't really want to be self-employed. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. It's better to get that information up front. And we have a lot of people that come out of the corporate world that feed down into entrepreneurship. There's different ways to get into it. But that's what I would recommend. Just talk to people. Get an idea what they do.
Right. Yeah. And I think sometimes for some people that's just really, that's the difficult part to do, is to stretch or call somebody or just without reaching out. It's a humbling experience, and it can be intimidating, to reach out.
And certainly if you're in sales, as I always tell my kids, quote unquote, that I don't care what your function is in the company, you're all in sales. And there is a marketing person, and that's distinctly different than sales, as we know. But sales, we're all in sales. It's hard. You have to understand that people are going to say, I don't want to talk to you now. I don't want your product. I don't want anything to, just leave me alone. That's just part of sales. So you're exactly right.
Yes, it is.
The fear of rejection.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I think everybody has, whether it's just a little bit or a lot, but every one of us has a little bit of that fear of rejection. So
not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur either. I'm the first to admit that we need all those good folks that want to put the nut on the bolt, and we need all of that. Mm-hmm. So I'd say just educate and talk to people.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing with us a little bit about your background on helping students and entrepreneurs. On that note, kind of a pun there. So what got you into real estate investing?
Well, initially, most of my investing has not been what I've been in. I've learned a great deal in Syria, all the good people there, the last 2.5, 3 years. Such a broad array of people and their experience and their different channels they market in. Whether it be wholesaling or any of those disciplines, fix and flip. I just came really from the investor standpoint and what's known as limited partnerships in real estate. You may be familiar with them. They're still out there. They're usually public, but they can be private as well. I had the good fortune to invest with a gentleman who's not with us any longer, but most people have heard his name, is Gene Glick Management Company. I think in the parlance, it's referred to as how many doors do you manage in management, real estate management, property management. I'll get it right. But I mean, Mr. Glick managed 23,000 doors, and he had a company that was spread over the United States and did very well. I learned a great deal from him, and he was. That was just a great. You hit singles. That's what Justin and I try to do. We hit singles. Occasionally, you hit a double, and this was a home run. So I mean, it's nice to be able to do that. So my background, to be clear about it, isn't the normal, if what I'll call the normal disciplines you see. Maybe it's IREA, but it was more the outside of that and the alternative investments. And I think that is why I was lured to notes, because it's an alternative real estate investment. It's a boutique industry, really. So when you indicated you didn't, a lot of people are not familiar with all of the details of a note. That's not unusual. It's a boutique industry. So it's a specialization, if you want to call it that.
Could you, in dummy terms, explain what notes is? Now, I know Justin Bogart a couple weeks ago gave, in simplest term, that it's a promise to pay. Is there any way you can even simplify that even more so? Because, I mean, in my head, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm just going to promise, but I think there's a little more to it. Obviously, there's paperwork involved and such like that. Yeah. But what?
Well, the thing for me, when I asked myself that question, about 3 years ago, I think of my own house. Think of your own residence. Usually, if you have a mortgage, you did all the paperwork with the bank at a title company. You did a closing, and you have a note, which is the promise to pay. You have the mortgage, which sets out the various, which is the security. And when you think of it in your own house, the bank doesn't own your house. They have a security interest in the house, right? So if you fail to pay after a period of time, they'll go into a foreclosure action, and they'll try to get the house back or modify it or do forbearance or do something to make it palatable for both parties. But for me, the easiest way to understand it is use your own house. What kind of an agreement am I in with the bank? And that's essentially the same thing in terms of seller financing and using notes. Now, Justin, I would encourage people to go back and re-listen to his webinars, and he has a primer on notes that far exceeds even my knowledge. So I would encourage people to do that. He is the professor in that area, in my opinion. So that wasn't an exhaustive answer, but that is a simple answer.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely makes it a little bit easier to compare it when you think about your own house.
That's what I do, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it, you work with Justin on your business. So what is your role within the business?
Okay, here's how this business works. First of all, I want to preface it by saying Gateway is set up differently than BrightPath would be, because BrightPath, Justin can buy a note, sell a note, create a note. In Gateway, we can create a note as well, and that's what we do. But essentially, you have an investor who wants passive income. And like anything in life, if you don't put a lot of effort into it, it becomes more passive, right? So what we do, we look for folks that have disposable income, that are investors, who want to be involved in receiving a very good rate of return, but their activity level is zero. They have to do nothing. Whereas if you buy or sell a note, I'd highly recommend you get Justin involved to do all that. And if you create a note, I would get him involved as well. But what we do is we will have an investor give the company, Gateway, which is the bank in effect, monies. We in turn will take those monies and buy a house. We also find the borrower who needs a home, and we'll get them in the house. And to simplify it, after that note and mortgage and deed are all created and change hands, if you will, the borrower in the house will pay Gateway, the bank. We, in turn, will pay the investor. We receive our fee, and then we pay the investor his stated rate of return on the monies that he has deployed in the program. It's not a hard and fast rule, but typically we're looking, for $50,000 and up participation level. Those monies could go in and to create another LLC with a couple of other investors, and then all of them buy the home. We buy the home, and then when the mortgage gets paid, they get their pro rata share of it. Interest rates are attractive to them. Are they going to be as attractive as a more active investment? Probably not, but they're going to be very attractive as you compare and contrast them with what you might get at a bank today. So they're going to be very competitive in that regard, competitive with treasuries, more so. And if you compare them against those broad spectrums of where you can put your monies, it's very attractive. And all you have to do is just sit back and get the payment every month. So it's
so it is.
That's the business model. Yeah,
it's about as passive as you can.
Yeah, that's it. That's as passive. Now, some folks do want to be more active,
mm-hmm.
and in that regard, they can mm-hmm. buy and sell notes through Justin, preferably, or have him create a note. It depends on how active they want to be. And again, Gateway is set up to provide a vehicle for very passive investors. And there's a lot of investors who don't have time. Mm-hmm. They have disposable monies, but they don't have the time to mm-hmm. be involved in notes. They're looking at it as an alternative investment that gives them a good yield and return on their money.
So on that note, how do you see note investing affected by COVID-19 with everything that's been happening? What do you see?
Well, I think anytime, and we could go back because of my I've been around a while, I guess I'll say it that way. I've seen a lot of cycles and a lot of, not pandemics, but things akin to pandemics. I think we all excuse me, they're mowing the lawn. I'm sorry, they're mowing the lawn outside. Anyway, you tend to see investors analyze what's going on, and that can take a while to do. And I think we're still in that analytic phase, quite frankly. I think that investors are saying, well, let's just see how some of this pans out. And we're starting to see, when I say we, Justin and I are just now starting to see investors, hey, tell me more about this now. I have a meeting tomorrow with a gentleman, for instance. That meeting wasn't going to take place a month ago, I can tell you that. But as investors begin to scout the landscape and say, okay, I think I see a path forward here. To your point directly, I think this is like most things, it's going to pass. I don't know when. And I found that even if the pandemic proper doesn't necessarily pass like we think it's going to, this may sound a little philosophical. I think we as humans tend to do workarounds. We find a way home. We find a way to make something work. There are going to be people that have mortgages. There are going to be people that use seller financing. There's going to be people that pay them every month. We've experienced no defaults on monies coming in. None.
Interesting.
So I think most people they regard the mortgage. You look at your bills spread out in front of you, they regard the mortgages in the top three. They want to pay that. They have to have a place to live. So I guess the jury's still out to your question more properly, but I think it's going to get better here pretty quick. I hope so. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think it will. things usually do. People have a way of working around them.
And it's funny you say that, because right now, I think the majority of people are looking for avenues that they can safeguard themselves for something like this to happen again. There are some
Well,
people.
you're exactly right, and to a degree, I mean, how much that I like your safeguarding language there. I would say if you and I invest 10,000 in the stock market today, it's pretty volatile. I mean, it's very volatile, and you really don't have any control other than strategies, option strategies, and limits and things like that. Most people don't do that, though. A lot do, but most don't. The average person's going to invest in something through their broker, and that's the end of it. They're probably not going to tell their broker, hey, I want stop limits on this. If it goes down too far, I want blah, blah, blah. So I think what we're doing has as much controllability as you can have, quite frankly. And it's secure in that the sense that the investor in Gateway is always collateralized from day one with a home that's worth more than the investment. So yes, could that fall? Could there be a foreclosure action? Yes, but we haven't seen that yet, and the investor is fully collateralized in his investments. So from a safeguarding standpoint, that is his security.
So last question.
Sure.
On that, what are some tools that we can learn that will help protect us from downturns in the near future?
Oh, that's a good question. Not just with notes. You mean in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in general. Yep.
Yeah. I think, again, I promote education a great deal. If you educate yourself about the subject matter with respect you're going to put your money in, don't become overextended. Or if you are leveraged, make sure you can service that debt. See what your safety valves are to get out of it. Don't lock yourself into something too tightly that you can't get out of. Again, going back to notes, those can be bought and sold. I mean, it's liquid in that regard. So there's a myriad of things a person could probably do, but I would say not get too eager to do anything right this minute. Take a balanced approach, a thorough educational approach, and talk to your friends. See the people, your acquaintances, your colleagues, what are they doing? And get a good barometer reading from what everybody else is doing. And then just plan accordingly. I don't think there's any one silver bullet, variety of things.
I think that's a great way to, it's a great philosophy to follow, is right now just taking a step back. I think we're seeing so many people on one end of the spectrum to the other, and it's you want to remind them, like, there is a middle ground here. We don't have to
Yes.
act like this doesn't exist, and then the other part act like this is truly the end of the world. We have to take that middle ground. And I think your approach of just taking a step back, breathing, and just having conversation with people on what's working and what's not.
Well, there used to be an old expression, make haste slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just make haste slowly.
Yeah.
And that usually gets you where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. Notes it's so appealing from everything that I've heard about it. And I do want to learn, and hopefully the audience that's listening to this is starting to realize just the variety of benefits as an investor on how it could really help them. So I love the word passive. And then when you say this is one of the most passive incomes, it's even more attractive to hear that. So,
well, rental income is passive as well, but every investment carries with it risk reward. Mm-hmm. So I think this one is a very good one in that regard.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
We will absolutely have your website on there and your contact information if you are okay with that.
I'm fine with it. Yeah, anybody wants to call me anytime. Phone's always on.
Okay, perfect. Well, Tim, thank you so much again. And hopefully sooner than later, we'll be able to see you face to face. Actually, whether it's half of your face or not, covered in a mask, but hopefully we'll be able to shake hands and say hi.
I'll look forward to that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.